I'm Susan Bratton, and this is Win the Day with James Whittaker.
You're listening to Win the Day with James Whittaker.
What we do in life echoes in eternity.
Broadcasting from Los Angeles, California. Here's your host, James Whittaker.
Let's go.
Hey winners, welcome back to Win the Day. The quote for this episode comes from Steve Maraboli and says, "Intimacy transcends the physical. It is a feeling of closeness that isn't about proximity, but of belonging. It is a beautiful emotional space in which two become one." Susan Bratton is a champion and advocate for passionate relationships, guiding others to discover deeper intimacy and pleasure. As a self-proclaimed orgasmonaut and sexual biohacker, she explores human orgasmic potential and recommends regenerative therapies to enhance libido and sexual satisfaction. As a lifelong entrepreneur and CEO, Susan leads two companies, The 20, a supplement company supporting sexual vitality, and Personal Life Media, which encompasses her Better Lover brand and 44 published books and programs on relationships and intimacy. Her work has touched over 1 million lives, solidifying her role as a leading authority on sexual health and fulfilling relationships. In this episode, we're going to talk about how to bring the passion back to your love life, the best tips for becoming a better lover, the hottest new toys and products to spice up your bedroom, and how to make your relationship the best it's ever been. Before we begin, the right bit of inspiration can completely change the trajectory of someone's life. So if there's a friend or loved one out there who needs to hear this episode or could use some help to win the day, share it with them right now. All right, let's win the day with Susan Bratton. Suze, great to see you. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
James, I think we're going to win the night today.
Yes, we are. I feel like that's a good title for the episode, too.
Night. Although some people like morning sex.
Well, to kick things off, do you want to tell us about what sex is as you define it and its role in the work you do today?
Yeah, thank you. I really love the level set right off the bat of talking about defining the word sex, because especially that you said in the intro that you want to talk about how to rekindle a sex life. I think a lot of people look at sex as intercourse and everything else is foreplay. And that's really, really common. We do foreplay and then we have intercourse and we've had sex. Let's have sex, which means let's have intercourse. How many times have you had sex? Sex is only intercourse. Or people who have sex 3 times a week live 10 years longer, look 10 years younger, and have a significantly happier life. Ooh, but sex means intercourse, and I don't want to do that. And so I just want to define sex as everything that is with yourself or a partner, relaxing, heart connecting, pleasurable, novel, exciting, erotic, sensual, that generates oxytocin, generates serotonin, relieves us, that reboots our nervous system, gives us orgasmic, explosive pleasure that includes hands and body parts and sensual talk and adoration and feeling safe and close, or feeling wild and crazy, feeling spontaneous, trying new things. It's so much more than just intercourse. However, I love intercourse and I teach orgasmic intercourse skills that are very easy to learn, because one of the things that kind of becomes a roadblock for a lot of couples in the long term is that something happens to one or the other person, physical illness, betrayal, an emotional issue of some kind, and they don't feel like they can have quote unquote sex, intercourse. And so they just stop completely touching each other. They start being in separate rooms. They end up in a platonic relationship. And all because they think sex means intercourse. So I love intercourse, but it's not what defines sex.
I didn't realize that so much, how many people actually are doing things like sleeping in separate rooms. It's like they are roommates in many long-term marriages.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the other thing is that some people snore really loud, James. And so there are couples who feel like, I mean, when you win the day, you got to win the night with your sleep. I know this is one of the core tenets of your work is great sleep. And I'm an Oura Ring devotee myself, and I check my sleep score every morning, and I am trying to crush that number all the time. I mean, sleep is so, so important. But your partner could be the thing that's preventing you from getting that deep sleep and that REM sleep. And so sometimes it is necessitated that people sleep in separate rooms, but you can't lose the fun, the pleasure, the connection, the comfort, the joy of being close, even if somebody has to get up when they start snoring and go sleep in their own bed.
And we're going to talk about so much today, and I'm so excited for this conversation, but it seems like step one for everyone listening is to really broaden their definition of what sex and connection means in their relationship. Remove the stigma. Let's eliminate any limiting beliefs, and let's start with a bit of a blank slate of exactly what sex and connection is.
Yeah, because people feel so guilty. They carry a lot of guilt. There's something wrong with me. We have mismatched libidos, all of these phrases that we use, My wife only wants me to touch her, on Saturdays. It has to be totally dark. We only have sex one way. It has to be this way. My husband, he's a workaholic. He never even touches me. He doesn't do anything romantic. I can't find anybody who's even attractive to me. I'm lonely. Dating is horrible. I mean, there are a lot. Our kids are in the house and we don't want to have sex because, oh my God, is that a buzzkill? That's a big one. Right?
Easy to find an excuse. Like there's always a reason to not do something. It's a bit like it was once described to me that people see the world as either a adventure to be lived or a danger to be avoided. And I feel like your line of work, it's really cool to say, cool, let's look at life as an adventure to be lived.
Yeah. Well, I like that you use adventure because one of the core tenets of the work that I do, and I think it's important early on for your audience, and thank you again for having me, for your audience to understand that I'm not a sexologist or a therapist or a sex educator. What I am is an author of passionate lovemaking techniques and bedroom communication skills and intimate wellness information. And that's very different. I just write about how to have hot sex. That's what I do. And yes, along with that comes the trauma issues, the misunderstandings, and all of those kinds of things that happen between human beings. But when I think about what I do and what it is that is my zone of genius, which you talk about as well a lot, and that is that I like to create what I call erotic adventures or erotic playdates for people. When you get out of the mindset that sex is this, we're driving toward intercourse, we're trying to have an orgasm, and that's checking it off the box, and you open that landscape to, and your possibility to, a panoply of erotic experiences, erotic adventures, erotic play dates. You move from thinking you know what you're doing to admitting that you don't really have a lot of experience. You maybe have a couple things you're pretty good at. You might even be overestimating how good you are at it because there's so much more you could learn once you start delving into your sexuality. And that instead of just learning things like, I'm going to learn what locations to touch or buttons to push to give her incredible orgasm, when you move from that to, we're going to learn something new together. We're going to try some new things. Oh, we're going to try breast massage. We're going to try a toy when we're making love. We're going to start doing yoni and lingam massages. Yoni being a word for the female genital structure, a tantric lovemaking word. Lingam being for the male genital structure. One of the things I like about the words yoni and lingam is that it's not a medical term. It's not like, I don't have to sit here and call everything a vulva, which is just such a lame word. I can't believe something so incredible got called something so lame. Vulva. So I like yoni, 4-letter word, a really good one. And yoni means portal in Sanskrit. It's a tantric lovemaking word. And so is lingam. Lingam's the staff. I like those words because they have a spirituality to them. They are inclusive of all of the parts. They're encouraging words, and they take you out of either dirty words or medical words and into kind of this sacred space, which is what good lovemaking is, sacred space. There's lots of styles of lovemaking. There's, kind of performance styles of lovemaking, which is what you would see in pornography and on television, which are not at all like what people actually do. These are just entertainment styles. Most people are copycatting those and missing the heart connection. There are tantric lovemaking techniques where you're like, are they actually having any sex? They just look like they're looking at each other's eyes. What are they doing? Yes, that's called eye gazing. There's that. And then there's the kind of kink and BDSM world, which is more sensational and often through control or objects of desire or sensation play. That's an interesting area. But my sweet spot is really what I call heart-connected, passionate lovemaking. And I very much choose those words specifically because a lot of men feel disconnected from sex. They feel like sex is just a thing they do with their penis. And when they can start to connect their heart to their genital system, they start to get much more pleasure out of it. It moves from being performance. And there's so much performance anxiety. It moves from being performance to being connection. A lot of times I like to say, I like to transform the friction into connection. The friction of sex, you're just rubbing genitals together to get off. It's empty.
Very transactional, isn't it?
Transactional, right? We're just doing a thing and then rolling over and going to sleep. And a lot of people still have sex that way. But when it's heart connected, you're slowing down, you're holding each other, you're kissing each other, you're getting things off your chest, you're checking in with each other. You're beginning to find your way back to remembering why you want to be together. So you're losing the goal orientation and you're connecting in your humanity. So I like that. And I like the idea of passionate because I want there to be a lot of I want that. I want you to feel like an animal. I want you to feel this like pounding, pulsing desire for each other. And no matter how long you've been together, you can find your way to that. And you can find your way to that in a long-term relationship over and over again, actually. And then I like the idea of lovemaking rather than sex. Because to me, when you talk about lovemaking, you're getting in all the good things. You're getting in the adventure and the sensuality and the pleasure tools and the joy and the leisureliness and the sensuality of it. And it's not like we're having sex. It's we're making love. And so that's what I try to do is give people ideas for how to affect that in their relationship. What are the pathways to getting to that?
And given your line of work, do you feel a pressure to perform in every single encounter that you have?
The way that I approach my lovemaking is curiosity. So I like to schedule dates with my partner, and I don't call it sex because then it's like, okay, we're going to have intercourse. And me, I'm like, what are we going to do? Let's just show up and see what we feel like. And this is something that I've spent a lot of time teaching women is to really listen to what's right for you in the moment. Generally, and everything is on a chart on a bell curve around sexuality. Some people are super sexual. Some people are asexual. So I'm really talking to the sweet spot in the middle of most of us and our responses. And when you're talking about men versus women, again, I support gender expression of all sorts. And I'm as masculine as I am feminine. I like to be a bomb-ass boss babe. And sometimes I like to just completely surrender to my femininity. And I want to have all of that. And I want my male-bodied partner to also feel all the feels and vanquish all of the, conquests that he wants to do. And so everything I talk about is kind of generally, it's the bell curve. Women are generally on a 28-day moon cycle, even after menopause. And so every day, not even every day, every minute, we are changeable. Men are generally more steady state. And so what I like to do is show up in the bedroom or wherever I'm going to be and just be an inquiry. I have the curiosity about what I desire in the moment. I feel into my body, which is what is called interoception. It's one of our senses. And there are so many women who say, I don't know what I want. I just know what I'm getting, isn't it? And I say, but you do. You do know what you want. You're just not listening to her. She's talking to you all the time. And when you give her voice to your partner, when you say to your partner, I feel really good today. I'm feeling great. I'm feeling strong. I'm feeling frisky. I'd love for us to try this new toy I just got. Or I want to do a lingerie. I want to dress up in some really slutty lingerie and I want you to film us so we can watch it later. Or I am feeling really meek and kind of wounded and exhausted. I need you to hold me and I need you to rub my neck and my back before I can even think about what I want sexually. You run all the gamut of those things. So I love to just show up in the bedroom and think about what sounds fun. And I like to make my husband offers. I like to run him a menu of offers. I like to say, here are some things that I've been thinking we might try that might be fun. And he'll say, here are some things that I've been thinking about that are kind of like, I've got this new fantasy, or I thought about this thing we did 20 years ago and I want to do it again. And we kind of throw it all into the middle of the bed. And we think about it, and then I'm usually the one who picks from the options of what we do, and we get started, and then we're doing a thing, and I'm like, oh, you know what I feel like doing now? Now this is what I want to do. And he's like, okay. And then I'm like, okay, can we go back to that thing? Or, oh, no, I want to do this thing, or let's try that thing. I never know what a date is going to be like until I get there, because I'm really good at being okay in uncertainty and feeling into what I want in the moment. And I've got a lot of experiences to draw from. And any couple that is pursuing their sexuality as a part of their personal development, which is what it is, it's part of your maturation, your personal growth. It's an area of expertise that you can gain. They are all learnable skills that get better with trial and error and learning. You start to get a repertoire of things and you start thinking of ideas, and the ideas never end. I remember you and I both love mentors. Mentorship is important to us. You are a mentor, and I am a mentor now at my ripe old age as well. And I've had the opportunity to be a mentee in my life and sit at the feet of some incredible educators, sexuality educators and sexuality thinkers and authors and writers and teachers and trainers. And the thing that I have learned is that good sex keeps getting better and it never ends. It's asymptotic. You can never get to the end and be like, well, I've done all the things and now I'm bored. You won't be. There's always more. That's what my teacher, Dr. Patty Taylor, said to me. She said, don't worry, babe, there's always more. And so it's nice to know that you can just keep increasing your pleasure, your satisfaction, your communication abilities, your orgasmic potential can keep growing and growing and growing and becoming more and more satisfying.
And you talk about connection, and the real foundational pillar of connection is presence. You have to be present. And I love that. There's a question I like to ask a lot of guests who come on the show.
Sure.
I know a lot of, you talk about a lot of the journey that you have from the moment you turn 42 and your sexual expansion journey and all of those different things.
Yeah, it's been 20 plus years now.
Yes, but to take us right back is there a story of struggle or success from when you were younger, like when you were perhaps a teenager or a young adult, that helped put you on the path you're on today?
Yeah, that entire path up to about 42 was all struggle and no success. I had very, very terrible things happen to me throughout my life, from being a child and being sexually and physically molested, emotionally abused, very poor attachment parenting. I was the parent in my family. It was difficult. I had a lot of terrible dates. I was a virgin until I was 19. The first time I ever had sex, I got pregnant, and I was even using birth control. It was like not even really worth it, I have to say. Definitely wasn't worth it. And so that was traumatic. And then, I dated all through college and had to deal with everything from near date rapes to deeply disappointing sexual experiences. Every once in a while, I'd see like a glimmer of hope. I'd be like, well, that guy went down on me and it was pretty good. And, just everything that could happen did to me. Then I met my husband and I thought, oh, he's lovely. He's ambitious and he likes my ambition. He's kind-hearted. He's brilliant and intelligent. He looks good to me and we have a good compatibility sexually. And it started out okay, like most marriages do. But about I'm going to say 3 or 4 years into it, the new relationship energy wore off, the love chemicals waned, and I started not really enjoying sex with him because we were in that, sophomoric era of our sex life where we didn't know what we didn't know. We were the blind leading the blind behind closed doors, and it just wasn't satisfying for me after a while. I could only have intercourse so many times and not have an orgasm where I still wanted to do it. And we thought that's what it was. And I just thought I couldn't have an orgasm from intercourse. And I thought it was me and he thought it was me. And, we were like, well, we still got to do it. This is what married people do. And this is what he wanted to do.
So you had the feeling that there's something wrong with me.
Yeah, that's what most women think.
Very common feeling, yeah.
That's what women think. They think there's something wrong with them. And that's because everything that we see in the media, in pornography, in erotica is, they have this incredible spark and he rips off her shirt and he pulls down her pants and he plunges inside her and she's like, oh, it's all good, and it's like there was no warm up. She didn't get her 20 minutes of fluffing she needs to be where her partner was. He didn't touch any part of her body. He didn't say sexy things to her. He didn't create a lover space that calmed her down so she could begin to get aroused. And so women think because they don't have that male style of response that they're broken. I literally get emails and DMs every single day. I could wallpaper the walls of this room with, oh my God, thank you. I thought it was me. You've given me hope. That you're telling me that orgasms are a learned skill, that I could have an orgasm from intercourse with my husband, that there's nothing wrong with me. How do I do it? And yes, in fact, it's so easy. I think I was telling you over lunch before we came here today that good sex is very similar to cooking. I like to cook because I like to eat healthy food. I don't want to eat out all the time. And, you get a recipe. I made a new recipe last night. I made a braised leeks and cannelli beans recipe. And I'd never made it before. And I made it and it was good. It was tasty. But I thought, oh, okay, I should have braised the leeks a little bit this way. And the beans, I would have done them slightly this way. And I'm not sure I would have used red wine vinegar. I might have used this sherry vinegar I have from the south of Spain. And, I'm not sure the thyme was the herb I would use. And and I said, I fed my daughter. She's visiting and I fed my daughter and she's like, Mom, I love this. It's delicious. And I thought, well, wait till number 3 time I cook this. And you're going to be like, God, this is even better. That's how sex is. It's a series of steps that you do, that you follow the directions because our operating system works the way it works and you'll get the result that you want. But then once you get that result, you can make that recipe better and better and better by adding your own little spiciness to it, your own personality, your own dynamics. And so I really have the easiest job in the world. Your job is a lot harder than mine. It really is. You've got to deal with so many harder things than I do because all I have to do is give people the recipe. And if they follow it, they'll have success. It's the easiest thing in the world to learn how to be good in bed. It's just that it's kept from us. We don't see it we don't see what it looks like when you have pleasure that is timed well and gives both people the things that they need. And men and women are different. You've had John Gray on. Your number one show is John Gray. Men are from Mars, women are from Venus. We have both nature and nurture. John talks a lot about the hormone profile of the male versus female. And there is a lot to that. There's all kinds of things that make men completely wired differently for sex than women. The thing is, the more we surface what those differences are, the more we begin to appreciate the differences and work together to give each other It's like the golden rule versus the platinum rule. The golden rule is do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. Well, if I made love to you like I want you to make love to me, you'd be like, okay, I don't need this. I need you to touch my lingam immediately, Where for me, if you touched my yoni immediately, it would be like, too fast, too much. And so once you start to work with each other's natures and nurtures and you understand them, you really begin to play that violin really beautifully.
And how does someone initiate a conversation around that? Maybe someone's listening to the podcast and saying, cool, I want to go and talk to my husband or wife about this. What's the starting point in that conversation?
It really depends on the couple. For some couples, I recommend a technique that I have called the Sexual Soulmate Pact. That's the couple where they don't talk much in the bedroom. They don't talk about their sex life out of the bedroom. She's not sure what she wants. She's just like, if she asks for something, he's like, oh, don't worry, I've got this. Don't, it's just, she doesn't want to get shut down. She doesn't want him to contract emotionally. So they're not talking. That's one. And the Sexual Soulmate Pact is, it's a free download. It's at sexualsoulmatepact.com. And it really helps you overcome those kinds of problems. There are other people for whom they can kind of talk about sex, but they don't know that they don't have a lot of options. They don't have that panoply of, oh, I can just show up in the bedroom and come up with 20 things we could do. They don't have that. They're like, what are the 20 things? For that, I give couples my sex life bucket list. Have you done that yet?
I have not, but I'm very familiar with it. What type of things are on there?
Yeah. So I put instead of it being techniques and communication skills, it's 48 erotic playdates. One of the things I learned from one of my mentors this was from Dossie Easton. She wrote The Ethical Slut, and she taught me a really simple equation for hot sex. And that is, desire has to be a combination in equal measure of safety, security, trust, so you can surrender and be yourself and feel seen and know you're safe and you're wanted. And variety and novelty. Variety, novelty, erotic adventures. So the techniques are good, but when you move to the next level, that is, what are some fun things we could do in the bedroom together? And the sex life bucket list is 48 erotic playdates. And they range from, let's find my G-spot or your P-spot. Let's try this vibrating ring during intercourse, to let's film each other, or start an expanded orgasm practice, or I'd like to become a multi-orgasmic man, or take some PT-141 and see what happens. Like that's a peptide that is kind of like a stimulating sexual peptide that you can take, so there's those kind of, let's take some MDMA and have sex and see what happens. There's those kinds of things as well. It's all kinds of different things that you can try together, because when you begin as beginners, when you're practicing new things, hey, I want to try some breast massage. I've got this massage oil. I want you to lean back against me. I want to pleasure I know you generally don't want me touching your breast during sex, but I'd like to activate some pleasure pathways for you. I'd like to stimulate all that tissue for you. And I want you to use this toy while I'm doing it. You use this toy on yourself, lean back against me, and let me pleasure you. And let's just try this, and let's just see where we go with it. It's just trying new things together really helps a lot of couples both gain skill and have new experiences together that reinvigorate their sex life.
And when you think about just the mental part of this, it's a bit like that. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. If you want things to change in the bedroom, you've got to be open to new things. You've got to be open to deeper connection. You've got to be open to saying, you know what, I'm at a minimum 50% of the problem in the situation that we're in.
Yeah. You've got to assume you're both half the problem.
Yeah.
One of the things I like about the bucket list, the sex life bucket list, is I give you a PDF. You can print it out at home. And then there's a little video. You can watch it on your phone in bed together. It's your first erotic play date. And you mark I walk you through all the 48 play dates, and I kind of sexily tell you what they are. I want you to get turned on while you're having your first erotic play date. And as I describe the experiences, your job, both of your jobs, is to mark beside each one on your printout an A, a B, or a C. A is, we're doing this. This is going on my list. I really have wanted to find my G-spot. I've wanted to activate my G-spot. B's are, it's not for me, but if you want to do it, like if you want to have a lingerie photo shoot with me, I would totally love to give you some pictures for your spank bank. And that's fine with me. I'll do that. It wouldn't be like on my A list, but I'll do it. And C's are, it's not for me right now. Maybe I'm not ready for that. That's an advanced maneuver for me, or I find it a little edgy, or I've always thought that was naughty and I'm not quite there yet. But none of the stuff on the sex life bucket list is going to make you feel weird. I guarantee you're not going to be like, ooh, because there is a lot of that kind of sex out there for a lot of people too, where it's like, oh. So it's really for a dude and his lady to kind of come up with the A list. And then you've got your A list and you've got maybe 8, 10, 15, 20, 30 things you're both willing to do that you'd like to try. And then scheduled sex takes on a whole new meaning because now you're not thinking, oh, I got to have intercourse. That's what a lot of partners are thinking. Instead of that, it's, oh, we're going to try this new toy and we're going to do this thing or have that thing or try that thing or find that thing or whatever it is. And then you start to look forward to it. You're texting each other. Oh, guess what I did? I did this and I just set up this playlist I'm going to play for you on Thursday night. And, oh, I can't wait to see you in that lingerie. And, oh, I can't wait to get that toy out and try it. I can't wait to get my hands on your boobs. Whatever it is that you're texting to each other, you're getting anticipation, you're getting excitement, and you're just doing something new together. And that's big.
So how did you go from being, I guess, unfulfilled, maybe, loved each other in the marriage to feeling a little bit unfulfilled and a bit uncertain, perhaps having some limiting beliefs around the things that we spoke about earlier? How do you go from that to being in your line of work today, the world leader in this field?
Well, it was realizing how easy it is to have great sex and wanting to bring it to the world. When my husband and I, when our marriage hit the rocks and we'd thought about getting a divorce and we saw all our friends getting divorced and we knew that it wasn't money for them because all our friends had jobs and were doing well and they were getting divorced like crazy and we didn't want to be another statistic and we always loved each other. We got along so well. And now I've been with him 33 years and I am more in love with that man than ever.
I think it's so interesting that you were with him before all of that and you're still with him today. It's so interesting.
Yeah. Well, I've been with him longer than I haven't at this point. He is my life person. I love him and I go through my life with him. I care about him so deeply. We've grown so much together. We've built so much together. We have so much together. And he's just a joy. He's a real joy. And whatever happens with us, we call ourselves Team Sweetie. And we've been doing that for 33 years, Team Sweetie. That's our little thing. And we just feel like we can weather anything. So when we started having these problems and got really honest with each other, and honesty was the first step for us, was just telling each other the truth, no matter how hard it was to say. And then kind of unlearning all the lying that our society teaches us to do. It's hard to tell the truth. Not for me anymore, because now I just am in truth all the time. And I don't hang out with people that I have to sugarcoat things for or anything like. I don't like to have to walk on eggshells or not be who I totally am.
You're worrying about what other people think. One of the biggest limiting beliefs that people have, right?
It's soul crushing. So there are people who do not enjoy being with me. I know it's hard to imagine, James.
Who are those idiots?
Who are those two people? Off with their heads. But you're not for everyone. That's how it is. But we did a couple of things simultaneously. We did a lot of personal growth workshops. We started with Tony Robbins workshops. I worked for Tony for a while. That was a lot of fun. I was the CMO of a startup, a tech startup that he did. And so we did a lot of Tony Robbins. We did Date with Destiny. And that taught us how to be really honest with each other. And then we also saw a therapist, and she worked on all the trauma that I had to help me get over that. Then we started going to sex workshops, sex, love, and intimacy workshops, tantra workshops, expanded orgasmic meditation workshops, all kinds of things. It was the workshops. It was the honesty. It was the personal development. It was the therapy. It was the combination of all those things. It just made us realize that sex are just learned skills that no one's taught us, and they're really easy to learn. And that made us want to start our business, Personal Life Media. 18 years ago, we started our business as a podcast network.
Amazing.
And podcasting 18 years ago was impossible to monetize. I was on a podcast yesterday with a friend of mine who I've been on her show repeatedly. I do shows with her frequently. We love to do shows together. And she said, yeah, and this is January when you and I are recording this. She said, I've sold out my year. I'm booked. I've got all my sponsorships are dialed in for the whole year now. And I was like, wow, that took 18 years for sex podcasts to get to the point where they could be monetized and someone could. She still has a job too. She's not full-time supporting herself on her podcast, but it's significantly additive to her life. And I was really happy to hear that. But we started out as a podcast network, couldn't monetize it well. And then we realized what we really want to do is we want to create online programs that people anywhere in the world who are never going to go to San Francisco and get naked and go to a sex workshop could do to learn these skills. And so the workshops that we went to, the really good ones, I worked with those experts to create online experiences that singles and couples could have to learn all these skills and these techniques and to go through these experiences that made them feel like there was nothing wrong with them and they could do all of this and their bodies were good and they knew how to approach their sexuality. And that's what I've been doing ever since.
We'll be back with the show shortly. I've got a quick question for you. Are you living up to your potential? It's a question that shapes your family, your business, and your overall happiness every single day. That's why I'm excited to introduce the Win the Day quiz. Head over to winthedayquiz.com right now, answer a few thought-provoking questions, and you'll instantly discover how well you're performing relative to your true potential. And here's the exciting part for our Win the Day family. As a fan of the show, you'll receive a personalized and absolutely free action plan to help you win the day every day. Now, just imagine how transformational the results will be when you consistently show up as the best version of yourself in every aspect of your life. Don't miss out. Take the Win the Day quiz now by visiting winthedayquiz.com or click the link in the show notes. All right, let's get back to the show. And what's your relationship status with Tim at the moment?
Married.
Yeah.
I'm married to Tim.
Love it.
Yeah.
And you opened up your marriage a long time ago as well. What were the ups and,
about 20 years ago.
What were the highs and lows of that journey?
Well, it's an ongoing journey and we've had many iterations. One of the things that we both enjoy is having experiences with other people. Once you hit a certain level of skill and confidence, you enjoy having experiences with other people. Lots and lots of people like to have threesomes or go to parties or, whatever, have these kinds of things. And I just think it's for us, I don't recommend it and I don't teach people how to have open marriages or be polyamorous or any of those kinds of things, but I don't hide who I am. So when I talk about what I do, I'm not proselytizing. I'm not recommending this for anyone because it's hard. You have to be a person who loves to do the work to have an open marriage. And we do. We can sustain a lot of discomfort and maintain our honesty and integrity through it and work out our stuff.
Through rules, right? Like you've got to have a few.
We always have agreements,
yeah.
But those agreements change over time as we have changed and matured and we have had different needs and wants and desires and relationship constructs. We've changed those rules. So we're always checking in on our current agreements and how we're doing with things. And sometimes my husband has a relationship. Sometimes I have one. Sometimes we have it together. Sometimes we're all in a relationship. We are kind of the stable base and people like to be with us because we are safe and we care for the tender heart and we're fun to have sex with. And so we don't have a lot of partners. And, I told you that I am the chief advocacy officer of Basis Diagnostics, Basis DX. That's the STI at-home testing company. And so I'm an STI, testing proponent and always have been. That's what drew me to them. When I got introduced to them, I said, I would really love to just help you expand your business because it's so nice when you have your test kits at home and then you can just do a collection, send them in, get your results in 24 to 48 hours, and then you can have safe sex with someone. So when I talk about having sex with people, I always want to have the conversation that STI testing is really, really important. You've got to keep your physical safety as well as your emotional safety in equal measure. We just make sure that whatever we're doing, we're not going out and sleeping around. We're just not. That's just not what we do. It's not safe enough for us. But it's also really an interesting way to go through life when you have the kind of marriage where there's always some opportunity coming around the corner for some fascinating new experience that you could have. And it might last for a weekend. It might last for a decade. or longer. Who knows what the upper limit of a love relationship, a sexy love relationship that we have is. When you have that, you have a lot of sexual vitality. You've got a twinkle in your eye because the world is your oyster. You've got your radar up. You're looking. You're
Jewelry
open.
stores everywhere, yeah.
You're open to like kismet. What is the universe going to throw in front of me that could be appealing? And so I think that's neat too. And I think one of the things that is kind of crushing about monogamy is for some people, that's perfect for them. They are locked in. They don't have to worry. There's no jealousy. They're life partners. There's nothing that's going to ever make them worried about their partner being with someone else. And I get that. That is what most people want, which is why I don't like to have anyone think that I'm telling you what you should do. I am not. I'm just telling you what I do. Take it or leave it. It takes something. It's like, I think there's something in everything for us all. And what I love about being in an ethically non-monogamous life partnership is that there's always like, oh, who knows what's coming around the corner? There's an excitement to it that I don't get if I was locked into a long-term relationship where that was the only person I was ever going to have sex with for the rest of my life.
And what's the most important agreement in an open relationship?
Honesty. So simple.
Yeah.
And that is the most difficult. That's why I don't recommend non-monogamy to monogamous people who can't even be honest with each other in their monogamous relationship. First, practice radical honesty. Brad Blanton wrote that book. He'd be a great person for you to have on the show sometime, or one of his trainers. They're all wonderful. And radical honesty is truth-telling without button pushing. That's what it really is. It's about how can you tell your truth and be truthful and to yourself and own your sovereignty and own your needs, your boundaries, your desires, while not upsetting another person. That's the line I'm always trying to ride in my honesty.
And are there any rituals or practices that you and Tim have on a daily basis or weekly basis to keep the marriage strong?
I would say probably the number one practice is that we have time together where we just lie in bed and we talk and we connect and I give him face massages and he rubs whatever hurts for me. He's got like a sinus thing I'm always working on. And we take time to slow down and drop in and connect and check in and say whatever needs to be said and those kinds of things. And we do that frequently. I did it last night before I got up this morning to fly here to see you.
Is there a broader lifestyle design or anything like that you two have? Or is it pretty much a bit of a go with the flow aside from some of the things that you mentioned there?
Well, we're both very busy with our careers right now. And he's building a new business while running the two businesses that we run together. And we work from our home, which is nice. So we're together a lot. And I think at this point, we barely need to talk to each other a lot. And we're still, we're communicating kinesthetically and emotionally and in ways where we're just always connected and our communication is easy. Our being together is easy. We're taking care of each other all the time. We're divide and conquering. We have a highly effective partnership.
Yeah. Sounds like it. That's amazing. Why does marriage change things so much? And are you an advocate for people to get married?
I'm an advocate for people to design their life the way they want it to be and to have the courage and conviction to live the life that suits them best. And if marriage is it, I'll come to your wedding and send you a present. And if it's not, I will support all of those ways that you want to live your life to.
And how much should someone experience of another person before marriage?
I mean, I think that depends. I was engaged to Tim within 4 months of meeting him. I knew by the third date he was the one for me. And 33 years later.
You didn't tell him that at the time?
I did.
Did you?
Yeah, sure. 33 years later, it seems to be working. It was a good hunch. I don't know. People have such vastly different need states. One of the things that I think is really helpful here to answer this question is actually not making any broad statement about this, but one of the things that I learned from Tony was about NLP values elicitation. Do you know about that?
Tell me more a little bit about it.
NLP is neuro-linguistic programming.
I certainly know about NLP, but in terms of that specific one,
And NLP it's essentially your human operating system's communication mode. How do you talk to a human so they understand what you're saying? And there are all these presuppositions and all this kind of thing. But one of the strategies of NLP is called values elicitation. And I've applied it to relationship. And essentially what it does is, and this is one of my workbooks, I'll send it to you. It's really fun. It's at myrelationshipmagic.com. You can buy it on Amazon, but it's a lot cheaper if you just go to myrelationshipmagic.com. It's a little workbook that you print out, and it essentially has you go through this process to understand what it is that you want most out of your relationship. And if you do it and I do it, we want totally different things. We're nature nurture. I'm estrogen dominant. I'm female. You're testosterone dominant. You're male. We're raised culturally differently. We might be raised in different socioeconomic systems. We might have different, we've got like entirely different personalities. So what you want out of a relationship is going to be really different. What you want from me out of a relationship is going to be really different than what I want from you out of a relationship. For example, my number one relationship value is security because I had such an insecure childhood. And one of the things that suits me about my husband is that he is a safe harbor. He's my protection. He's very, very nurturing of me.
And is that environment and that relationship of safety, is that where things like sexual compatibility can be united a lot more? Maybe people are worlds apart, but once that emotional safety is provided, and it sounds like all of the things that we've spoken about today in terms of connection, that's where you slowly bring compatibility into each other.
Well, like security for him is a non-issue in relationship because he feels secure. He feels safe. He doesn't have to walk in the world worried about anything. He doesn't come from insecurity. And so that's not in his top 4 relationship values. So his number 1 is passion. He's very kinesthetic because he's like a numbers guy. He sits at his desk and it's all monitors with numbers on them. He's got a wall of monitors with numbers on it, spreadsheets and numbers and things. He's like AI driven man. And he has to get away from that and connect physically. He needs touch. He needs grounding. He needs sensation to get into his body and calm his nervous system and get out of his head. And he likes sexy stuff. He always wants me to walk around the house nude. He loves to see me when I get out of the shower. He just likes to look at my body. He likes me to sit in his lap. He likes me to do his face rubs. He likes me to touch him, hold him, hug him, be sexy, all of those kinds of things. And that's what I get up every day and try to make sure that I do is I give him a lot of physical touch, kinesthetics, and sensuality. Where he gets up every day and makes sure that I've got, Helivac insurance for my dive trip in the Sulu Sea, right? He keeps me literally, that's what he's working on for me right now is Helivac insurance for the Sulu Sea because I'm doing a dive trip way out in the middle of nowhere. And if something happens to me, get me out of there, right?
I hope he's done it right.
He'll do it right. He does everything right. That's what he does. And so once you begin to know what your top relationship values are, you can tell your partner, this is what I need and this is why I need it. And you can describe how they can give it to you. And so I think if you stripped away all the things I do, all the sex techniques or the erotic adventures, the communication skills, if you don't start at the foundation, which is, what do you need? Let me give it to you. And what you'll find when you do your relationship values, and I hope you'll do this with Jen, is that all of a sudden your behaviors will become very clear to her and vice versa. And you'll be like, oh, that's why you do that to me. Oh, that's what that behavior's from. This is what you're trying to get. Until you get to the point where you're really explicit about describing your needs and asking for what you want, your partner is only guessing and they're probably treating you the way they want to be treated instead of the way you want to be treated. Back to the golden rule versus the platinum rule.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a really, really foundational piece of relationship architecture that holds, then you stack on the sexual soulmate pact. Now I'm telling you what I need. I'm in tune with my body. I'm asking for things. Now we're doing the sex life bucket list. Okay. We're learning new skills. We're learning things together. We're having new experiences. Those things stack very well, and that's the right order for them. Once you start doing the soulmate pact and you start having like really easy communication, you know how I was talking to you in the car and I was describing some ideas for you guys and you were like, oh God, I can't believe she's in my car and she's telling me all these things. Oh my God.
I just wish I was recording it.
Honestly, I thought you just like really kept your cool, man. And, but you saw how easy it was for me to talk to you about those things, right? I mean, it's just like nothing for me to tell you how to do these like really sexy things, right? That I gave you these ideas for. Well, that's only because I've practiced it. You know, the reason I can talk about these things is just because I do. That's what I do. And when you start the sexual soulmate pact and you start like, oh, could you go a little lighter? Could you, keep doing that? Or, you know what I'd like you to try? Hey, would you try this thing? Or I don't really like that thing. When you start being able to do that, then the next level of that is, okay, now what you're doing is you're getting beyond just talking and asking for what you want or throwing out ideas. Now you're starting to do those things we were talking about in the car, like adoration and appreciation. Things women really need are to know that they are really sexually desirable, but also that you appreciate them for all of their other skills. Because if you just objectify your woman, she's going to be like, oh God, all he thinks about is having sex with me. It's just so annoying. But if you're like, you're brilliant, you look gorgeous, you're hot, your turkey meatloaf's amazing, you know, whatever all those things are, she knows you want her and you find her desirable. What you want is to know you're doing a good job. You hate it when you screw up. You want to be respected for doing the jobs that you do. And so when the woman is like, babe, the way you gave me those orgasms was like, oh my God, you're getting so good at that. I came so hard so many times. When you get to that point, you're like, thank you, baby. I'm feeling good, right? Like that's what you need to hear. And then you get to fantasy sharing. You want to hear a fantasy?
Yeah.
That's really hot. That's turning me on so much right now. Yes, I do. And when you start to incorporate your fantasy into the bedroom, that actually opens you to, hey, these are just fantasies, but they might be something I'd consider in the future. Then you start working on things like after you've made love, you say, God, tell me what your favorite part was. Okay, well, my favorite part was when, and you tell your partner and she's like, that was your favorite part? Oh my God. Wow, I didn't even know you liked that. I would not have known that was your favorite part. Then you start really getting to know each other. And so when you're thinking about what some people call dirty talk, but what you're really doing is you're doing adoration, worship, you're respecting your partner, you're saying words of appreciation, you're telling them dirty stories, you're moaning. Oh my gosh, so many couples are so quiet when they have sex. You know, there's like not a peep. And I know there's kids in the house and you got to be quiet sometimes. I do get that. But the more that you, and especially men, because men are in their heads trying to do a great job giving her incredible pleasure, and they forget to have fun themselves. So when you're like, oh, baby, that feels so good. Oh, my God, just do what you're doing. I'm just looking down at you and I am so in love with you. I'm so happy. Oh, God, babe. Oh, my God, this is the best you've ever done. Oh, God, babe, you're killing me. Oh, no, this is so good. That's increasing her confidence so much. And now she knows you're having fun and she can relax. Relaxation is the foundation for get the turn on. You can't get to passionate lovemaking till you feel relaxed with each other. My friend Emily Morse, you know, she's Sex with Emily. She's been one of my most famous sex friends. And she says communication is lubrication. And it's like, exactly, that was it, Em. Perfect sentence. So adding those kinds of things really adds a dimensionality to your sex life where it's like rocket fuel. It's like a stem cell IV injection for your sex life. It's like, boom, wow, all of a sudden you're younger, you feel better, you're hotter, you're hornier, everything's just brighter. You know, it's so good.
The difference between the male versus the female sex drive, it's very clear. It's very apparent. Like you've been talking about, it takes 20 minutes for a woman in many cases to be able to feel warmed up like that. Whereas for guys, they're just ready to go, you know, when the wind changes or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So it seems like
testosterone, you lucky ducks.
Yeah, that's right. It seems like then that it really should be about men to really do the hard work, first of all, to do this stuff. So I think it'd be really important to talk about what men get wrong or what they ignore about women's libido, desire, and arousal?
Sure. So very, very simple. Libido is your body. Okay. If you're not healthy, you don't have as good a libido. So this is where you want to take better care of yourself. You want to do the things you talk about with your morning and your night work, Then the desire is how you feel about yourself and how you feel about your partner. And there are a lot of people out there walking around with core wounds. I'm not enough. I'm not lovable. I'm fat, I'm ugly, I'm stupid, I'm anxious, I'm this, I'm that, all that negative self-talk. Well, that does not make for very good bedfellows, right? So working on whatever those core issues are is very important. Also, the limiting beliefs. I can't, I'm not the kind, I don't want, it's bad, I'm wrong, all of that stuff, like getting over all the repression and the abuse and the societal shame that we have about our sexuality. That's your desire map. How are you meeting my relationship needs or not? If you're not meeting my relationship needs outside the bedroom, we got to clean that up before we can work on our inside the bedroom, because otherwise you're just stuffing it and it's still hindering your growth.
So underrated, isn't it?
Yeah.
I was something John Gray said on here as well. It doesn't start when you're in the bedroom and you turn the light off. Like the romance and all that happens throughout the day. He talks about the 6-second non-sexual hug, which is something that I've received so much feedback on.
Yeah.
Guys are just, they're after that sexual energy, and the women are just like, let me go about my day without being touched, or making sure that they're touched and communicated with in the right way.
Right. Touching for pleasure rather than touching for getting something. That's very important. So arousal, I was telling you how the penis has erectile tissue in it. It's twice as big as what you see when you look down. All that tissue inside, all of that genital structure is in female genitals too. It's just under the hood, if you will. We're the innies and you guys are the outies. And it takes us about 20 minutes to get filled with blood so we get our erectile function. For our male-bodied partners, it's just a minute or two, because the blood has to flow very quickly into the penis to lock it off and hold an erection, where in the female genital structure, it seeps into all these nooks and crannies. And so when couples are thinking, okay, I've got to turn her on, I've got to push her buttons and spin her dials, I've got an erection and my job here is to have intercourse because we're having sex and sex is intercourse, then all the foreplay gets skipped and he's like a heat-seeking moisture missile and she doesn't even have her lady boner yet. Now he's penetrating her and she's trying to keep up with him and she's faking her orgasm, or she's trying really hard to get there, but it's just too soon for her. And all of that stuff is like, let's just stop and drop. Let's just slow our roll. Let's just connect our hearts. Let's hold each other. Let's talk about what might be fun. Let's get things off our chest. Let's massage what hurts first, because if your feet hurt or your neck hurts or you sprained something running or lifting or whatever you're doing, and you got to rub that stuff out before you can move on to pleasure. It releases. You want to release and relax and let down so you can climb the arousal ladder. And that's why I love yoni massages. Yoni massages give you time to relax, put attention on her yoni, give her massages, let her get things off her chest, relax into her body, get out of her head. It really, estrogen makes us worried about things generally. You know how women worry about everything? Or we take things personally when we're not meant to take them personally. We're worried and we're multitasking and we've got our mind on 1,000 things we can't quite settle.
Especially when they become mothers.
You're doubling and tripling the things you've got to have your attention on. So what we need is safe harbor, and we need to relax so everything can start to run, so the fluids can start to run into our pelvic bowl, so our vaginal mucosal lining can start to get wet, so we can let tears out if we need to, speak out things that are holding us back, let our heart rates come down, let our hearts connect, let our spit run. All of these things are the physical indications that we are relaxing into arousal. And that takes us a while. If you can get out of the mindset of, oh, I've got an erection and my job is to perform. That's also what makes sex bad for men is performance anxiety, lack of stamina, premature ejaculation, which it's a word, premature ejaculation. You can really learn how to manage your stamina and last longer with breath work techniques. And I teach a technique with Jim Benson called the me breath. And the me breath is a wonderful technique for men to be able to get in their heart, get present, slow down, get out of performance anxiety, get out of the doing to her mode and getting into the being with her mode, and then gassing and breaking his arousal such that, okay, maybe he walks into the bedroom and he sees her naked body and he's got an erection. That doesn't mean it's the time to use it. That just means that he's turned on. Great. He can lose that erection, get another one. That's how the penis works. It fills up and deflates all the time. It should do that all night long. You should wake up with a morning erection. That's healthy. You are good at that. So not worrying that, okay, I'm hard and this is what we need to do and getting to it, but just the slowing down really helps everybody.
Do you know that very famous scene in American Pie where the main character, Jim, is with Nadia, the girl of his dreams, and it's a very obvious premature ejaculation setting? Yeah. Performance anxiety for people. It's a big one. It's in the bedroom. I mean, performance anxiety in every aspect of life.
Yeah, exactly. You're in your head. I have a book. It's called GetHardBook.com. And Jim and I wrote that together. And there are 4 techniques in there that work really well for guys that want to last longer. And they are things that help a man get out of his head and get into his heart, into his body, into his presence, into sensation, into pleasure, into connection. So that might be a good thing. And then there's another technique too that I think is really good. It's called thrust in time. Can I tell you about that?
Yeah, absolutely.
That one I like because, and it's at thrustintime.com. I like to have a lot of resources for people because sex is such a vast landscape that I never know where someone's entering. And one person who's watching us, their biggest issue could be that they can't satisfy their wife because they come faster than she can get off. Others are, well, my wife never has orgasms from intercourse. What do I do? And thrust in time kind of solves both those problems simultaneously. And those are the 2 biggest problems that I hear. So this isn't a shot in the dark. This is like the big bell curve is that's the problem that needs to be solved. And thrust in time is really just an update of an ancient Taoist practice. And it's essentially a counting method. And you know how there's conscious incompetence and then you work your way to unconscious competence? So you have to do it a few times. And after a few times, you don't even have to count anymore. You've got the rhythms of it. But it's basically this notion that there are deep thrusts with intercourse and there are shallow thrusts with intercourse. And there are slow and there are fast. And that makes a lot of sense. And this is you start with, and it's a count of 10. You start with 9 shallow, easy, light, right at the entrance to the vagina, not going in very deep, nice and slow, just kind of a teasing, kind of a slow warm up. And the entrance to the vagina is a sphincter. It's a round muscle and it has mechanoreceptors in it and it likes the stretching of the penile entry experience. And a lot of times a guy goes in and he goes in too fast and too deep, too soon. And so by doing these slow little shallow strokes, you're feeling that opening, really nice and slow. And then you give her one long, deep, slow stroke. And you're not like grinding and you're just one nice, long, deep stroke. And then you go back to 8 shallow strokes, really nice and slow, kissing her, telling her she's beautiful, whispering dirty things in her ears, whatever you're doing. And then you do 2 deep, long strokes. And she's like, I want more deep, long strokes. And you're like, oh, you'll get them. You just have to wait. Right. And this is just what I did right there is that combination of I'm in control, but I'm also taking care of you. It's the soft, gentle with the control that's very appealing to a woman. You know, a woman wants to surrender to you. She really wants to let go. She wants to let you drive if she trusts you. And when you say, I've got this, you just relax. I'm going to give it to you. You just wait. And it's like this tantalizing thing where you're building it up, and then you give her 7 nice short strokes and then 3 long deep strokes. And by the time you get to 4 or 5, she is begging you for the deep strokes. And pretty soon she's going to start having orgasms from intercourse because she's always been penetrated too deeply, too quickly, too fast, because when men watch pornography, they see that, and they think that's what their job is. They think they have to like be the Energizer Bunny. And that is hard on you too. That's like, it's exhausting, you know? And so when you're just slowing it down to that and you're tantalizing her and she's feeling every stroke and you're feeling like when your mind isn't on, I'm banging her, and instead it's on, I am teasing this tissue. I'm feeling every single moment of connection of my penis in her vagina. I am right there feeling it. And knowing that what her vagina wants is not friction in and out all the time. It's not an inside out penis. So it's like a cave. It wants you to explore it. So another orgasm technique that I really like is when you think about your penis kind of like a pool cue and you're exploring the top, you're exploring the bottom, you're exploring the sides, you're kind of like really getting everything in there. And that's another really great technique to use. So you've got slides, you've got grinds, you've got short strokes, you've got long strokes, you've got all these pivots, you've got all this stuff that you could be doing. The more orgasmic intercourse techniques you employ, the more you activate sensation and increase the pleasure that she's feeling. Pretty soon, you're not going to have to worry about scheduling dates. She's going to be scheduling the dates with you because she wants that kind of pleasure.
You can see it's so different than the way that people have been thinking about all this stuff.
Yeah.
In episode 188, we had marriage therapist Danae Logan on the show. She wrote a great book called Sovereign Love. And in that book, she wrote, the narrative of the husband begging his completely disinterested wife for sex is literally the most common conversation I have with the couples I see.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you the number of times I've heard women dismissively talk about the fact that sexual desire is just something they no longer experience at all.
Yeah, that's a shame.
Yeah, how do you feel about that?
Heartbroken.
And pretty accurate, though, in terms of your tens of thousands of emails I imagine you would have received over the years.
Yeah, intimacy expert to millions. It means I have read a lot of email. One of my programs is a program called Revive Her Drive. I say to men, this is what you need to know to get your wife to want you for sex again, but only if she wanted you when you got together. If she has never wanted sex with you, like there are people who they get married, they've never had sex, and then they find out she just really doesn't want it ever. That's very difficult. That takes therapy.
That's an example of one of the people outside of the bell curve that you're talking about.
Out of the bell curve. But if you used to have good sex and now you don't, mostly it's just because it hasn't been as good for her as she's needed to be, and it was easy for her to give it up. And it's not his job to make her want sex, but he can do well by learning what it is that she needs to feel like the sex is good and to help her. And often in our culture, we want our man to be our masculine sexual leader and to help us awaken and open to our own pleasure. We want him to be, in a way, our sexual trainer, to give us the confidence and inspire us and to, lead us toward our pleasure. And most couples, they really do have that. Equally now, more and more, I am hearing women who are saying, my husband never initiates. I'm the one who's begging for sex. I'm hearing that way more than I used to over the last 2 decades. And I do think that that's loss of testosterone, endocrine disruptors, ultra-processed foods, eating too much, not enough exercise, not
video
enough
games,
sleep.
probably.
It's stress, workaholism, all those kinds of things. What I say to them is, I'm going to give you all the things nobody ever told you so that you can reverse the approach that you've been taking. And this new approach will move her closer to you instead of push her away. when men start Revive or Drive, they email me back and they're like, oh, you clever little vixen. You called it Revive Her Drive, like she was broken. And I found out it was just that I wasn't being the husband that she needed me to be in the bedroom. Now you've shown me what to do and I'm doing it and it's working. And I'll give you a perfect example of one of the things. And that is, and you said it, like guys are ready to go. You know, the heat-seeking moisture missile, right? I just think that's such a funny phrase. I love that. That's one of my favorite penis words, you know? He's ready to go. And so he's offering sex and that's too big an ask. And so she turns him down and then he feels rejected. And then he gets into his victim mindset or into his anger mindset, which are like the two safe emotions men are allowed to have, which you guys have been served as much injustice in our society as women have, believe me. But it helps guys when they begin to make small offers and when they're not trying to get sex and they give up on that. And what they're trying to do is create fun and pleasure and connection and intimacy. And when they just roll back to that and they start doing things that way, then they can get her to allow them to him to touch her again. So she's not shying away. And, you know, like when she's avoiding your touch, switch it up to making her want that touch from you. Like I want my husband's hands on me all the time now. And I used to shy away from him before we learned all of these things. And it's because he was trying to get sex. And I was just like, if he doesn't touch me, he can't grab me and he can't, you know? And so once he started just doing yoni massages, holding me, letting me calm down and get in his arms and slowing down. And the thrust in time worked really well for us. Introducing toys helped. Our expanded orgasm practice really helped us. All of these kinds of things that are not just driving toward intercourse created way more intercourse for us. So I'd say almost always it's reversible. And women just need a lot of encouragement and a lot of support, but it's possible to get them to want, not only to get to want sex with you again, and by sex I mean all the things, not just intercourse, including intercourse, but to start asking you for it, scheduling time, doing vacations where you can go and have sex, carving out time on your calendar for it, asking you to try new things. You can get her to the point where she feels really sexually self-expressed around you and accepted for it all.
Is sexual frequency a good barometer for a healthy relationship?
I think it is. If you look at a lot of the clinical data that's been created all over the world, everywhere from New Zealand to Europe to China to Russia, you look at all this data about how sex is good for you. And by sex, I don't mean intercourse. Boy, do I say that a lot, don't I? But I think it just gets people out of the mindset of that's all there is and to opening, expanding the playing field to a lot more fun stuff. Mutual masturbation, toys, yoni massage, oral pleasuring. Like a lot of people say to me, oh, I don't like 69, which is mutual, simultaneous, or I don't like that. And I'm like, or I don't even like oral. I don't like oral. It's like, okay, let's dive into what that is because is it that you are embarrassed about your genitals? Is there something that you're worried about with regard to your genitals? Is it that you don't know what to do? Is it that you've just never had it good? Because anything like that where you say, oh, I don't like it, it's that you literally just have either some blocks or limiting beliefs, or you just haven't had good technique and it hasn't been done well to you. Because things like 69 are kind of a more advanced move, but once you get good at it, oh my gosh, it is one of the closest, most intimate, it takes you into stratospheres of ecstasy that even intercourse can't do. There's something about simultaneous oral pleasuring that is even beyond category in sexuality. And so I say, keep practicing. Take an erotic play date or 7 and try it. You'll learn all these different, and it's body dynamics. Maybe the way you've been doing it isn't right. Maybe it's side by side, lying on your side, or maybe it's you on top or you on bottom or what have you. And so I think the most important thing is that these studies show that sex 3 times a week, and by that I mean all the things, 3 times a week or more, generally adds about 10 years of health span to a person's life, and they look generally 10 years younger than their cohort. And we know from like the Harvard Men's Study that relationship is what keeps you alive. So if you have a hot, sexy, passionate, satisfying, intimate, orgasmic, pleasurable relationship, and you have that till the day you die, you're going to die older, better looking. People hate when I say this too, James, because they're like, well, is that correlation or causation? I mean, really, maybe they were just good looking people, so they got laid more. And I'm like, whatever. Okay. You don't have to have sex if you don't want to, but I'm going to, and I'm going to look younger, and I'm going to be happier, and I'm going to be really welcomed. Okay. So you just do what you want to do. Like, everybody's always so like up in their knickers about all this stuff. And it's like, okay, don't do it. I don't care. So, but I think 3 times a week for sex, whatever that is really, it's a nice thing to try to shoot for, but we have busy lives, but give it a shot. But there's one other piece that I want to say about it, and that is that I think it's really important to have orgasms when you have lovemaking. And I'm just going to use the word lovemaking instead of sex, because that's my word. And for men, it's like, it's no problem at all. I can have one. But I'm like, what about becoming a multi-orgasmic man? What about P-spot activation? What about prostate massage? What about? You can have so many kinds of orgasms, 20 kinds of orgasms. Men are like, I can't have 20 kinds of orgasms. And yeah, you can, dude. You got the same operating system as all the other guys that are having those. It's simply a series of learned skills. Where women kind of know there's different kinds of, they're kind of like, I have a clitoral orgasm, but I want a vaginal orgasm. I want a cervical orgasm. I want a throatgasm. I want a footgasm. I want a bellygasm. I want a coregasm. I want an expanded orgasm. I want a female ejaculation. I want a this. I want a that. You know, women are a little more aware of it. They're a little ahead of men, but orgasm is the secret to the longevity. Like, so sex 3 times a week or lovemaking 3 times a week, have lots of orgasms, because it's like jet fuel for your longevity. So intimacy is great. Holding is great. Oxytocin generation is really great. It's the antidote to your cortisol and your stress and all the being close and loving. Great. But why wouldn't you just also have a lot of orgasms? Have 30 or 40 orgasms too, because all you have to do is learn how to do it, and you can have them all. And that's what's making you go, the oxygen's going to your brain, your natural killer cells are expanding, you're massively producing oxytocin, you're releasing a bunch of serotonin, you're rebooting your nervous system, you're doing like this cascade of benefits. And then the cherry on the top is that semen has over 20 benefits to your partner. And so if you are lucky enough to have a partner and you've got your contraception handled such that you can have unprotected sex in that way, then wow, it's a gift that just gives, because it's testosterone. You give me testosterone. You give me zinc. You give me luteinizing hormone that regulates my cycles even after menopause. You give me spermidine, spermine, putrescine, which are that supports 9 of the 12 hallmarks of longevity. Yes, you can take Primadine supplements, but you can also have lots of semen. And so that can also be very, very healthy for longevity. So the orgasms themselves, they're going to amplify the longevity benefits of good sex.
You've been open about your own trauma a fair bit in this interview, which I really appreciate,
Sure.
as I'm sure everyone does. How do you feel someone in a relationship approaches that conversation around sex if they have a partner who's been significantly impacted by trauma?
Well, there are so many kinds of trauma that it often, I think, seeing a therapist is really helpful. And the world of sex therapists has been blown wide open. There are so many great therapists out there right now. And this is what therapists do. They help overcome traumas, sex therapists. And where I would go to find a good sex therapist is at asect.org. That's AASECT.org, because they are the trained sex educators and therapists who are the creme de la creme. And you can work on Zoom with them now. And it's just so nice. It's so accessible. But equally, there are a lot of people who are couples and one or both of them have had some traumas and they just support each other through it. They can't afford therapy, but they can afford to read books, do work, be honest, work through things, realize when they're triggered by things, communicate about them, and find their workarounds and their solutions. You never completely get rid of trauma. Where you can get to is awareness of when it's ruling you and be able to handle that in a way that doesn't keep getting you upset. Your traumas are always going to be a silver lining. They're going to be horrible things that happen, but they're also things you can move through and get beyond and manage.
And what about people who say it's hard for me to be comfortable in the bedroom if I don't feel comfortable in my own body? Perhaps it's a mother after having kids or something like that.
Yeah, that's a really, really big one for women. Really struggle with body image issues. And that's because we're estrogen dominant, and estrogen is a molecule. It's a hormone of safety. We have to be kept safe as we walk in the world. And so estrogen is like our reticular activation system. We always are aware. We're always looking everywhere for the danger that's going to happen to us. What's going to happen to us? What's going to happen to us? And when we do that, we are also judgy. It makes us judgy. We're judgy our whole lives, especially in our 30s. In our 30s, we're hitting this maturation level where we're individuating and we're starting to let go of the way we've been raised and what society expects from us, and we're carving our own path. So we're hitting this nexus where it's probably when we're having our kids and we're the most judgy, and that hits us around our own bodies. We judge ourselves. We see every flaw. And one of the things that I tell women is that luckily testosterone has rose-colored goggles and it doesn't see those flaws like we do. There are men who are like, yeah, my wife does not look good to me. And I feel very badly about that. But the large majority of women who are like, oh, I got cellulite, my boobs are saggy, I don't know, all these different things. And it's like their husbands are like, she looks good to me. That's why I picked her. You know, it's like really simple for you guys. We look good. You like our squishy parts. You want to grab them. You know, they feel good to you. They're like, they feel yummy to you.
Especially in this trend of AI-generated images and Photoshop and all that. People are sick of this fake perfection. Give us something real.
Yeah, right. You want some meat to hang on to. You want to squish those boobies. And that's what guys like. And women as we age, we tend to get more mild. We're like, well, all right, this is what we look like. And I just want to have hot sex, you know? And so a lot of us women, we've kind of gotten through those body image issues and we've worked through them and we're a little more self-accepting of them. But if body image issues are holding you back from having the love and the health and the connection and the orgasmic pleasure that is your birthright, maybe it's worth working with someone to work on that and to kind of get through that. Because And people get pissed off at me for saying this too, but I mean, I really look at it like it's our meat package. We're all doing the best we can do with our meat package. It is who we are, and it shouldn't hold us back from living a beautiful life.
Yeah. John Gray, when he came on the show, he was very against the idea of masturbation, particularly for men at a young age. How do you feel about that? Especially, do you feel like you have an opinion that differs between genders?
Yeah, bell curve again. But there are some men that are really, they're so horny. It practically kills them, James. Like they're just all like, I'm always horny, I can't even think, you know? They're just like, And, like one guy was like, what can I do to make it stop? You know, guys feel like that. They really do.
Check themselves in for chemical castration.
Oh my gosh, I feel so bad for them. And there are women who feel that way too. I mean, there are those people. For some people, when they masturbate, they feel depleted. Some men even cry after they masturbate. So or ejaculate. And so it's not right for them to do it at all or frequently. There are other men who it feels good for them to masturbate every day. There are young men who often masturbate more than once a day. The only detriment that I can see is if it's preventing you from doing something else with your time that you aren't getting accomplished but should be, or you're masturbating so quickly that you're training yourself to become a premature ejaculator. And so learning how to edge, use your breath work, relax your pelvic bowl, use the me breath, learn how to bring the sensation up and into your body, how to run your sexual energy. All of that is very important. What I tell women a lot is let your husband masturbate. Like, don't make him hide it. Make it a part of the sexuality. If he needs to masturbate, allow him to masturbate in front of you if he wants to. Why should it be this furtive thing he has to hide? You guys need to blow off a little steam now and again. You need to, it's not always our job as the female partner to be there for you to let your steam off.
So he might feel shame as well. And she might feel, hey, what's my husband doing sneaking around? So
right.
Yeah.
So the more that you make that just a natural part of what's going on, he's masturbating in the shower and I'm doing my makeup, or, he's masturbating in bed and I'm fine with it. I'm going to roll over and go to sleep. He's going to toss one off. It's all good. I think that's very important. Or I'm just going to lie beside you and whisper dirty things in your ear while you masturbate, and then we'll both go to sleep, or I'm going to use a vibrator while you masturbate. Those are all really empowering for your guy to have that experience, and also for women to be able to masturbate. Like, oh, I don't satisfy you. You need to masturbate. Well, no, I just like solo pleasuring too. I do different things to myself than you do to me. I like it all. I just want it all. So that's also very, very helpful with regard to masturbation.
How should parents talk to their kids about sex, and at what age should that start?
I did a wonderful video with a girlfriend, Nat Kringoudis from Sydney, Australia, and one other fellow Australian, another one. And we had a really good dialogue. It's on betterlover.com, how to talk to your kids about sex, where we both shared our recommendations for talking to your kids at every stage through their development, all for the rest of their lives, really, for the rest of their lives. Because, your kids are always your babies, even when they're all grown up. Even when you're 85 and they're 65, they're still your babies, and you can still talk about what's going on with them. And you really want to be talking to your kids their whole life about the different aspects of sexuality and development and interrelating and love and intimacy and safety and care and our genitals and the names of all the parts and all those things. And you drip it in consistently and slowly over time so it's non-reactive. That's the best way to do it.
I feel like shame is one of the most brutal, most powerful, and most destructive negative emotions that a human can feel. So anything around alleviating that, I feel like, is so important, which is what I love about, so much of the work that you're doing today.
If I had a nickel for every time, or if I had a Bitcoin for every time, someone said to me, my parents never talked to me about sex. They never showed any intimacy in my household, and I feel like it scarred me. And I say to them, it's not really their job to do it. And you probably gave them the side eye roll when they tried to do it. You don't even remember. And they probably had some clumsy attempt that you've blocked the memory of. And they probably felt like they shouldn't show you affection, shouldn't show their affection in front of you, that it was wrong. You grew up in a different era than they did. They didn't have the tools that you have now. And it wasn't even really their responsibility. Your sexuality and your sexual growth are a part of your personal growth. And it is your job to learn those things, not your mom and dad's. So if they did anything, good for them. If they didn't, you're like everybody else. Don't worry about it. It's your job.
I love it. 2 questions before the rocket round. What's the most important piece of advice, just to tie it all together from what we've spoken about today? What's the most important piece of advice you give to people about intimacy?
Well, that's a tough question because everybody comes at it from a different place.
And to really do a bit of a summary of what we've spoken about, it seems like connection, communication, slowing down,
play.
Adventure, play. Like even that idea, I think, from the man's perspective of saying, cool, rather than trying to do this thing in 2 minutes, of being like, let me allocate a minimum of 20 minutes to make sure my wife is seen and appreciated. Is very, very important.
And then how am I going to get her to let me pleasure her for 20 minutes? That's the next question. Like once he gets to, all right, I'm going to do it. Now, how do I get her to let me to? That is the hardest part. And that is where you bring your masculine sexual leadership. You're like, babe, Susan Bratton, the sex expert, told me this is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to do it. And I want you to just calm down, and I want you to learn how to stay connected to sensation and connected to your heart with me. And we're just going to go on this journey together, and I'm going to activate your yoni. And I'm going to turn it all on, and I'm going to plump it all up. And then you tell me if I just keep getting better and better at it. Give me feedback. How do you like this touch? How do you like this? Oh, no, don't go up against the fur. Start with the top down and stroke down, but then lift your hand up instead of going against the grain. Oh, yeah, that makes sense, babe. Okay, now how is that now? Yeah, that's good. Okay, thank you. The thank you is a magic word. When you ask your partner for feedback and they give it to you and you thank them, oh my God, then they're not afraid to give you feedback and they'll keep doing it. And then you've got all this great information to do. It's an incredible job for them. So the more you can get them talking to you, the better off you are.
And expanding that definition of sex, like we mentioned at the start, I think is very, very important too. Yeah. Last question before the rocket round. On your best day, what's an affirmation that you would write on a flashcard that you could show yourself on your worst day?
Oh, I already know it. It's don't compromise yourself. You're all you've got. And it was Janis Joplin who said it. And I've been telling myself that since I was 13 years old. Just be who you are. And you'll find the people who love you, and you don't have to worry about the rest. You know, not everyone in the world has to love everything you do. You just have to find your people.
Well, let's now move to the Win the Day Rocket Round. 10 questions for some quick answers. Are you up for this one?
I am up for it.
Number one, you might have just covered it, but number one, what quote inspires you the most?
Oh, damn, I blew my first one.
We're going to stick with Janis Joplin? That's a great quote. Nice. Number two, morning coffee or evening wine?
Oh, God, do I have to choose?
Both is the most common answer on the show.
Yeah.
Number three, what's one bit of advice you'd give your 18-year-old self?
Oh, gosh. Always say what you need. Always be comfortable expressing your boundaries, because your boundaries are what you can play full out right up to the edge of and have a lot of fun within.
Number four, what book do you gift them most apart from your own, or what book contributed most to the mindset you have today?
I liked Spin Selling by Neil Rackham.
I don't know that one.
It's an oldie but goodie, and I probably have given that book away more than anything else, and it's because it's situation, problem, implication, need. And so it's really about what is it that the person needs the most, and that's what they want to buy from you.
Number five, was there a vulnerability you once hid within that became your superpower?
Yeah, I think my superpower is courage, and it's the courage to speak the truth, to speak on behalf of people. And so speaking up about sex is my superpower.
Number six, what's one thing you've learned about failure?
That it's going to keep on coming and you can overcome it. It's no big deal.
Number seven, if you could sit on a park bench and have a conversation with someone alive or dead, who would it be?
Ooh, do they have to be alive, or could they be alive a long time ago?
Yeah. Anyone from history.
I would be interested in the ancient sexual female wisdom cults and what was sexuality like pre-religion?
Great answer.
Because it's so repressed. Religion's repressed our sexuality.
Yeah, I love that. Number eight, what tool or resource best helps you run your life or your business?
Google Calendar.
That's good. Mine too. Number nine, share one thing on your bucket list. Would it be a scuba diving adventure coming up?
Oh, that is on my bucket list. Yes, I am going out to a reef for 8 days in the middle of the Sulu Sea, 12 hours out from land, to dive and see the beautiful reefs before we ruin them all.
Yeah, good. And last question, number 10, what's one thing you do to win the day?
One thing that I do to win the day is come see James.
I love it. Well, there are a bunch of ways to connect with Susan. We'll link to all of these in the show notes. You can follow her on Instagram at Susan Bratton, grab a copy of her many books on Amazon, and access a whole heap of goodies on her website, susanbratton.com. We'll also be linking all of the things that she mentioned during this interview. Suze, we've got to get you back. There are so many topics I feel like we've barely scratched the surface on. So next time you're in LA, we'll sit down and we'll do it again. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for joining me on another episode of the Win the Day podcast. We want to hear your thoughts on what we covered today, so drop a comment on the YouTube version of this episode with your favorite takeaway, any questions you have, or what actions you'll be taking as a result of what was shared in this episode. And if you found value in the Win the Day podcast, leave a 5-star rating on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. You'll find a link to both of those in the show notes. It'll only take you a few seconds, and more ratings really helps other people discover the show so they can get the mindset upgrade they need, and we can bring more winners into the Win the Day movement. That's all for this episode. Get out there and win the day. Until next time, onwards and upwards, always.